All right, how's everybody doing? It is day. Welcome to Chicago Music Revealed, episode 26. I'm Mike Jeffers. You're listening to the great theme song by Craig Pilo and Groove Tower Music, so big thank you. And again, welcome to Monday here, Chicago Music Revealed, episode 26. I am Mike Jeffers, as you probably already guessed, founder of Chicago Jazz Magazine, also the director of programming at the EPIPHANY Center for the Arts. What a weekend. You can tell I got a little sun sitting outside, staying completely socially distant from everyone, but it was good to actually get outside and enjoy some sun. Hopefully everybody else did. Now it's a little cold today, but felt good. I think we're on the right track. We're moving forward. The mayor didn't show up in front of my house because I didn't have a party, so that was good. I love the fact that she's out on the scene, making sure people are staying socially distant and not having house parties. That's like, I mean, give me a break, right? Don't we all want to get out of this fast? I mean, there's actually promoters promoting house parties where they're going to invite 200-300 people, but they're doing it on Facebook and pushing it out like it's a club. Unbelievable. The coronavirus is real, just so everybody knows. And as I always say, it's the reason why my business is completely shut down, along with thousands of others. So let's get through this as fast as we can so we can get on with it. If you're going to be continuously talking to people and moving around and exchanging things very close together, you're going to continue to push the virus out. We will never open up a club again. We will never have a festival again. And it will not be a fun summer. So let's all heed the warnings. And stay safe, stay healthy, wear your face mask. By the way, I went to Whole Foods in the South Loop yesterday. There was a line around the block because they were limiting people from getting into Whole Foods for good reason. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying. I'm just reporting, as they say. So, all right. Thanks so much for being here. This is a great show. We've got Jeff Cebulski. I'm going to bring him on in a second. He's one of the great contributors we have to Chicago Jazz Magazine. The new issue for May 2020 is up online right now. And he's got a great article that he did for his Mr. C's column that he's been doing for, I don't know, probably a couple years now, almost 2 years. We're going to talk to him about that. But he really connected on this one because he talked to Howard Mandel, who is, a legendary writer, editor, publisher, Downbeat. I can go on and on. Plus, he's also the president, I believe is the official term, of the Jazz Journalists Association. So I actually had the honor of being on a panel for one of their things. So it was great, but Jeff talked to him. So we're going to talk to him first up, and that's going to be, we're going to talk about the book and also a little background on Jeff because it's fascinating. Then we're going to bring on our good friend, Tom Muellner, first time on this show. I think he's been on 2 other shows, actually, that I've done. So he's a great pianist in town. He's been doing some live streaming. Of course, he runs the legendary Serbian Jam session every Monday night when it was happening. And so we're going to talk to Tom about that. He's played with thousands of people, including myself. And we'll see how he's doing, see what he's got happening, and also learn about his live stream. But before we do that, let's bring Jeff on. I'm going to, as I always preface this, Jeff, I am running the board. I am doing all the technical stuff. So as things crash and burn, it is completely my fault, and everyone's here along for the ride. And I think some people actually are cheering to make sure that I do crash and burn. So it's just for fun, I suppose. So how are you?
Oh, no.
How are you, man? I'm glad we made this Skype work.
Yeah, I'm doing well, Mike. My wife is doing well. And we're just being 2 older citizens in the great city of Chicago, appreciating our mayor like you do.
That's right.
And I mean, the cool thing is that even though we can't get out and about, we had a chance to spend some time outside as well yesterday. But in this particular part of my life, I can sit in this room. I can listen to any of the music I want to. I can do writing for Chicago Jazz Magazine. And I think it's great to have something to care about, even though I'm like you, a little frustrated because we can't get out and hear the music and see people again. But I know that time is going to come.
It's going to
But
come, and you and I are on the same page where it's like, let's bite the bullet and get through this already.
yeah, exactly. And we care a lot about the musicians in the city, uh, and so we wish them the best, and we're just waiting for that day.
Yeah, no kidding. And you're right, because I can see all of the recordings behind you. You could be in there for a couple of years, it looks like.
Well, I have reacquainted myself with some things that I haven't listened to for a while. And that's been fascinating. I started that little thread several months ago. Why do I still have this album? And
Right.
I'm starting to grab a few of them to add for future columns, only because I'm discovering why I do.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, and you've been writing your column for it's got to be about 2 years now, right? I think for Chicago Jazz
Just about,
Magazine.
yeah.
Yeah, and you write the great column. It's Jazz with Mr. C, and this one it's up on Chicago Jazz Magazine. It's chicagojazzmagazine.com. The May issue is up, and I should preface it too. We put a hold on the feature interviews because we do all of those in a studio and we do all of those face to face, and it wouldn't be the same if I was doing a feature interview on Skype. So we put those on hold, but we still have great content. And your column, Jazz with Mr. C, is always one of those columns that you expose people to new music, new articles, new books, new stories about different musicians. And this one actually in particular is interesting because they revised the definition of jazz encyclopedia that they've been. I think how many issues has this been? I mean, they've done this for several years, right? Or
I
several
think
issues, I should say.
the series began in the early 2000s, and
Okay.
it's been through 3 or 4 renditions with slightly different titles each time.
So this one, Howard Mandel went through, and it looks like he consulted on the revision of it and the addition to it. So talk a little bit about what the article's about. They can get all the details when they read it, but let's talk a little bit about what the article's about.
Well, we got a copy of this revised jazz and blues encyclopedia, and once I noticed that Howard was basically the lead editor on it, I said, this Sabina
Yep.
said, you ought to read this book, Jeff, and write something about it. Well, as soon as I found out that he was connected to it, I said, I got to have a conversation with him because he knows a lot more about this business than I do. And to a certain extent, a book, or what we call an encyclopedia,
Mm-hmm.
is pretty anachronistic in the digital age. But people like me, I appreciate that because the truth, I can find information in a published book faster than I can find it on any internet source.
Mm.
Because first of all, I know how to read a book, and secondly, it doesn't take very long to find what you have to find because there's an index in the back. I used to teach, and we made students go into the library and everything to get research, and some of them didn't want to bother. I said, look, I'll give you a computer, and then I'll take that list, or I'll figure out what type of information we're supposed to find, and I'll give you a certain limit, and I'll beat you. Because I know how to find it in the library. I know where to find it. I know how to decide what book actually works
Mm-hmm.
and everything else. And I guess it's become a lost art to a certain extent. But anyway, as I say in the column, and I don't want to go through the whole column because I want people to read it.
Right. So do I.
Encyclopedic volumes in this country regarding jazz, especially, are basically disappearing. And so the things that we used to rely on in book form are basically fading away to be replaced by online renditions. And so consequently, having a book like this come out and knowing how important something like this would be, especially to young people who are trying to learn names and figure out associations, is, I think, still an important thing. It's a tool.
Yep.
And so I first of all wanted to tell Howard that I thought it was still valuable, but the fact is that it's kind of it's difficult these days because publishers want to limit the number of pages in such a volume. That's why I like putting quotes around the term encyclopedia. It's not the old Britannica of jazz. They had to excise things that they had put in other volumes in order to make room for new stuff. And the new stuff makes it relevant.
Yep.
But it's too bad because some of the old stuff really still matters. As you know,
Yeah.
jazz and blues have two expanded, extended, ancient almost, over 100 years of traditions. And students of both art forms really need to know the whole thing.
They need to know where it came from, and if they're eliminating items, then they're going to miss those pieces of time, history, and they might miss artists that they should absolutely listen to and follow. Yeah, you're right. I never thought of it that way, but all these different editions are growing, but because of the price of publishing, I get it. Trust me, I get it. I ran a magazine for 20 years that was in print.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to cut some things out, so I understand that. But you brought up a great point. I never thought about that.
So, to their credit, they maintain the units or sections that do take a person through some history. But the publisher this time decided that the units had to combine both jazz and blues, and that's where the excising began. Because you only have so many pages to dedicate to so much room for a particular decade or whatever. And, you know, Howard had to go through all that. He did have some help, but I think he's the one who made some of the tough decisions.
How many pages is this book? Because, you know, I've seen some of these encyclopedias of jazz or blues, and I mean, it's like, what, 800-900 pages, some of those things.
Yeah, I forgot. I think this one's between 500 and 600 pages.
Yeah.
But, you know, that means some of the print gets smaller in some sections, but I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, because the small print areas actually have some of the really cool facts and even trivia information that a person who really wants to know stuff would know.
Well, the thing that I love about this article, and everybody can read it on ChicagoJazzMagazine.com, their Jazz with Mr. C in his column this issue, and it's right up there on the homepage, so you can check it out. And I love that you talked to Howard about it, and he really gives you some detailed explanations on some things, which is fascinating, and it's more than what we're going to talk about today. So I'm encouraging everybody to head over there to check it out. But what was one of the things that maybe Howard said to you that you didn't expect to hear from Howard when he was going through this and putting this kind of a thing together and editing it and consulting on it?
Well, I think I got a newer education actually on how decision making is done at that particular level, and the kind of what should be a yin yang between publisher and writers and editors sometimes turns into a little bit of a, you know, like who has the power here?
Right.
And obviously the publisher has more power because the publisher decides how large a volume is going to be. At the same time, the difficulty, and by the way, this gets translated to education so much, especially for history teachers.
Yeah.
Every year, there's new history. Every year and decade, there's new music, new artists. And the question is, how do you make a decision? Now, people who read the column will see that I dedicate a paragraph or two of my own reaction to who's not there. but again, some of the fun of reading such a thing is that you get a chance to read it critically and have an opinion and an attitude about it to a certain extent. So, for example, just one little thing out of it, decided that he was going to Keith Richards, the guitarist for the Rolling Stones. He threw him into the 20th century. And thinking, now I'm of an age, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that Keith Richards' finest work occurred late 60s and early 70s, but especially with albums like Beggar's Banquet and Let It Bleed,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where he did have to play some blues licks on there. But Howard was so impressed with their, I think it was Blue and Lonesome album that they put out just a few years ago, that he decided that the place to put Richards was in this particular decade, this past decade, because maybe people would then check him out and see and then maybe go backwards. And I can't really argue against the logic other than, for me, it looked like, well, wait a minute, if he's that important, he should have been put earlier. But you know, it's that type of stuff that that a knowledgeable person reading this can have some fun with the volume. But on the other hand, I saw people on that list that I was pleased with, not so much surprised, but kind of gratified to see that, you know, Howard and his contributors, especially his blues guys, they really know what they're talking about. They know
Yeah.
the people who really have made a difference. And so other than the fact that publishers will give credit to certain people by name because they're associated with the publisher, but these people don't really do all the work.
Right.
Someone like Howard does a lot of work on here. And so I think one of the cool things about the column, he gives due credit for the work that he put into this.
Well, you brought up a great point because putting Keith Richards in the 21st century, just one example, right? I mean, that's like a no-brainer, 20th century, Keith Richards, whatever. But then Howard has a thought process on why he did that, which is interesting, and that's how all of this back and forth stuff probably happens with all the historians get involved, and then they all start arguing about it. But they all know their stuff so well, like what you said, is that there's reasons for them to do it this way or that way or this way or that way. You know, I just talking to you just now, and I've read a lot of these things. I've never thought of these that way. I just look at it for the information. This is who it is, done deal. But it's interesting, and it's an interesting concept that Howard's coming up with, and really getting in depth into that. So I'm glad you did this because it's you were asking the questions that I think you're probably the only one that would have asked these questions. So I'm glad you did it.
Well, I think one section, if he had asked me, what should we do in the next edition, besides the stuff that he actually tells us in the column,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that you could read what he said because I think that I think he would like an even more expanded coverage, and the that are missing in this book could not be with one of them. But there are musicians who cost decades,
Mm-hmm.
and were important. For example, one of my favorite musicians, we learned Dave Holland in the 1970s because he was Miles Davis's chosen bass during the development of his own.
Yep.
Dave was a guy in England on the board. Since then, Dave Holland has become one of the most well-known world jazz musicians, and Hey is really the late 90s into the early 21st century when he was leading that fabulous quintet with Chris Potter and Kevin Eubanks and a series of really great drummers. Anyway, that's when I really fell in love with Dave, but I kind of knew that he had come prior to that. And so I think maybe it is more important that people know that that's where he started. But I really would like people to understand that that guy's career just kept going and going and going. I mean, we're talking about 4 decades of excellence.
Yeah.
So if there was a section in the book that talked about musicians, both blues, Buddy Guy, for example, and jazz musicians who were really important in 3 or 4 decades, I think that also add an education of scope, understanding of genre music. But that's just a view that I have, and I think he would probably partly agree with that.
Yeah. Well, it's a great article, Chicago Jazz Magazine, the new issue up. And Jeff, we ran long, but that's all right. We're going to have you back on, and the next time we have you back on, we're going to talk about your former career as a I guess they were called DJs, right? Is that the technical term?
Yeah,
FM jazz DJ there, and you had your own show, and we'll have to plan some time out next time so we can talk all about that, because I know you and I have discussed it at length offline, but it'd be fun to talk about it here because I'd love to get your take on the direction of jazz radio and all of that in this world of the digital age and the world of Mike Jeffers having a daily show on Facebook Live, right?
Yeah. Well, I just want to say that I appreciate the people who have responded on occasion to things that we're doing. And in my case, if they read something that I wrote, I would like to remind people who are readers of the magazine that we certainly don't mind hearing back from them. And I do appreciate it when people say something about it.
Yes. Yeah, we love comments. We love feedback. We love everything. We get a lot of readers, and I can't imagine. I don't know. I think a lot of people, maybe they read stuff and then they don't think that they should reply or even say great article or anything. But we love that stuff. And of course, as I always say for my stuff, but I'm sure you'll probably echo it, if they've got some suggestions or somebody that the Jazz with Mr. C should take a look at, by all means, shoot us an email, leave us a comment, send us a message, and we'll see what we can do.
And just one other thing, the encyclopedia does include a number of Chicago musicians. And so therefore people should read it to find out who's in there in case they're interested. And then it's not that difficult to get a book, and there are discounted copies available. So let's give Howard some support here when you can.
Yeah, no, good call. I totally agree. And we'll link everything up too when it goes out on YouTube and up on ChicagoMusicRevealed.com and everything. But all right, Jeff, great article. Thanks for jumping on. I'm glad we made the Skype work. You look very professional with all
really?
that backdrop. And that's like you're set up for this kind of stuff. This is great.
All right, Mike, I appreciate the time and the push and what you're doing to keep things alive.
Well, we're all working together here. So, all right. So I thank you, and we'll see you for the next one, and then we'll schedule a little extra time so we can talk about your past career because it's fascinating.
All right. Well, thanks.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. All right. Well, that was fun. I'll tell you, everybody needs to check that out because his articles are always just spot on. And the fact that he did it on the brand new and expanded edition Jazz and Blues Encyclopedia, Howard Mandel helped. It says he's a consultant on it, but I know he's I guess you'd probably call it an editor at this point. But anyways, great article. I encourage everyone to go read that. And again, as I said, if you've got some suggestions, have some questions, anything, Jeff loves to get that kind of feedback. If you love the article, let him know you love the article. It's going to be up on social media starting tomorrow and be pushed out on everything. So, love the feedback and send it along as you can. So thanks to Jeff for joining us. Now, all right, now we're gonna try to do something here. We're gonna do the old Mike's gonna call somebody while on air, and I need to put my earbuds in so I can hear one Tom Muellner here, but we're gonna try to dial him up. We couldn't get the Skype working on Tommy's side today, but we are going to dial Tom up. Everyone talk amongst yourselves as I bring Tom Muellner up, hopefully. You even get it ringing, right? It's like I'm calling to tell somebody they won the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes or something. Everybody stand by. Hopefully he answers.
Hey, Mike Jeffers, how the hell are you, man?
Tom Muellner, you're live on Chicago Music Revealed. How are you?
Good. How you doing? How's everything?
It's, well, everything's on a standstill. I don't know about you. I don't have any gigs.
Yeah, well, in jazz, cooking used to mean a completely different thing, but now I'm literally cooking. Making a roast.
Well, you've got all this extra time now. See, I guess the coronavirus is working well in your household because you're able to cook home cooked meals now, huh?
Yeah, boy. Yeah, it's a weird thing, but terrible. Obviously, I mean, fatally terrible for some people,
yes.
But in a way, you stop to smell the roses for a minute.
Well,
and it's the air is cleaner and things like that.
Well, it puts everything in perspective, I think, a little bit too when something like this happens. Well, which it's never happened. So I mean, let's hope it never happens again. It's not like this is normal.
Wow. Yeah, no kidding. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen happen in my life.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. Now we should talk a little bit. I know you've been doing a live stream thing, and I know you and I text back and forth. You and I have played together. So the first gig I played with Tom Muellner had to be New Year's Eve at the Wilmette Country Club back in like 1998 or 7 or something like that. It was a long time ago. Jennifer Zayas, I think, was the vocalist on that.
Right. I think we played a wedding, right? Wasn't it a wedding?
No, we did New Year's Eve, I remember. And then we might have played a wedding after that. But I remember the first gig we played. I was hanging out at the Chambers, good old Chambers back in the day when Rusty Jones and Scott Holman and Brian Sandstrom were the house trio. And
Right.
that's how I
Right.
met you there. And we would
Mm-hmm.
play and stuff. And then I think I booked the gig through the Wilmette Country Club, and I hired Jennifer and I hired you, and I don't know if Nick Schneider was on it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was a long time ago,
like,
but
yeah, and we still play together. It's amazing.
Yes, it's gone downhill ever since. No, it's actually been a wonderful thing. You know, we've had some great times.
Oh man, we played
together.
a lot of crazy
those videos,
gigs.
Yeah, those professional videos that we did are really nice. I was looking at one the other day.
They're still up there.
Chicago
so it's
Jazz Trio. Yeah.
ChicagoJazzEntertainment.com for those of you that are in need of a jazz trio, quartet, or vocalist anywhere throughout the entire country. We have instruments and we do travel. And
yeah, that's right.
We recorded some professional videos out at the Mackinac Arts Center, out on the stage at the Mac. And it was you and myself and Nick Schneider as the trio. And then we had Stephanie Browning come in and perform. Dan Ferris performed another set. And then Eric Schneider showed up with his sax and did a set. And
with a saxophone and in his bottle of Malort. Oh, just kidding.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm sure he traveled with that too. But he had a clarinet along it mixed in there as well. But yeah, those things...
just to torture us a little bit.
I always tease him, man. I'm like, what is that guy trying to do? Get the snake to come out of the basket over there? What's he doing with that clarinet?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, he's obviously he's fabulous, you know, of course.
Oh yeah.
On any instrument he plays. So.
Yeah. No, he's a good friend, and we like to tease him. And he teases back, and he's always fun to be on a gig with. That's for sure. So let's.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk a little bit before we get into your live streaming thing. Let's talk a little bit about the jam session, and I set it up because I think it's one of the most famous jam sessions in the city at this point. One of them. There's a couple.
Certainly, yeah.
Serbian,
and it's pretty renowned all over the country, actually. Several months ago, a cat came in who I'd never seen before from L.A. And he had a saxophone and he played and he sounded like great. And now we're friends. His name's Ray Zapeta, I think.
Oh.
But anyway, and he gave me a CD and he's got some heavy cats on his CD, West Coast guy. So I mean, and New York musicians and so on have come to that session. In fact, Richie Cole came to that session. Maybe it was a few years ago, but of course, we just lost him.
Yeah, he passed away 2 days ago. I think it was. It's a shame.
Yeah. Another great musician's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And but I played with him a few times over the years, and he was a really great guy and great player.
Yep.
And like I said, he came to the Serbian one night, and I made sure. And there were a couple other piano players, but I think I kind of spurted back up there. Man, if Richie Cole's going to play, I want to play with him. So
let's talk a little bit, because the Serbian jam session at the Serbian Village right up there on Irving Park Road, it's one of the most unusual spots for a jazz jam session. Rudy, the owner, sweetheart of a guy, wonderful guy.
Yes.
How did you find that place to do a jam session in?
Well, the first time I ever heard of the place was I got a phone call from Catherine Whitney.
Sure, yeah.
And I guess Rudy was friends with the guy down the street who had a music store. And I guess Rudy was talking to that guy. He was, he's of European descent, so generally the Europeans seem to gravitate towards jazz,
Mm-hmm.
And so he's asking the guy for some advice, and I guess he gave her Catherine Whitney's name, and then she called me up and said, I'm going to be doing some gigs at this place, and, I can't do them all, but, and then I don't know what happened. I don't remember if we ever did any gig there, but then, and then one night, fast forward a few years, Phil Gritteau and myself were hanging out and talking about doing a jam session on a Monday night. Now, I have to preface this with Art Davis had a jam session up north, like in, I don't know if it was Skokie at a Greek restaurant on Tui, right near the Edens. And I love that jam session. I love the idea of a Monday jam session because most musicians are off, and it's just a musician night or whatever you want to call it. You know?
Yeah, like an industry night.
Industry night.
Yeah.
Industry night. Anyway, so when our Davis's jam session ended, I guess Bill and I had talked about resurrecting something on a Monday night, and so we made various stops, having drinks together. And I said, let's check out the Serbian Village. I did a couple gigs there, you know, but he never had anything consistent at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He'd have a something once in a while. But anyway, and then Rudy seemed very interested, and the rest is history. Now we're in our 10th year.
It's amazing.
And I just recently spoke to Rudy. He's called me a couple times, and he's still into it, and it sounds like he's keeping things afloat. I think maybe he owns that building, and that maybe helps. And, you know, frankly, I'm worried about all these places, you know, like Andy's and the Jazz Showcase and the Green Mill. And hopefully we're going to get back to where we were eventually, but who knows?
Well, that's the tough problem right now is that, you know, I have a feeling that when these places open back up, it's going to be a very limited amount of people allowed inside. And then is it going to be economically feasible to have groups performing and everything because of their size? You know, I mean, look at Winter's, great little room, high rent district. And, you know,
yes.
it's a, you know, 150 seater, and, you know, you need more than 20 people in there in order to make the numbers work. So I don't know how any of these are gonna be able to you know, make things work once things start to loosen up and open up a little bit. But you know,
actually, I got an email today from my friend Richard, who books the Hancock Signature Room, 95th floor, and asking about the June dates. You know, he says it's all up in the air. We don't know, but would you want to do your steady? Because I do the fourth Friday of every month on the 95th floor. And I'm thinking that those two elevators that are terribly crowded.
Yeah.
You know, I said, well, I'd wear a mask. You know, in the elevator, but who knows when they'll reopen? Everything's is if.
Right.
And maybe, you know, but if they reopen and if they'll continue to have live music is the other big question. Not only there, but a lot of other places. You know, like I'm at the Tortoise Club on State Street, around the corner from Andy's.
Yep.
I have a steady there on Fridays, and have done private parties there. And they have a Steinway Grand in there, but you know, I don't know what's going to happen. You know.
Well, that's the thing.
Knows?
You brought up a great point with the Hancock building, just with the elevator situation. If you can only put 2 people in the elevator at a time that know each other, or 4 people in the elevator at a time, it's a whole lot of going up and down the elevator to get people upstairs to be there, number one. And then number 2, I know the layout of the lounge up there, and it's a completely different situation. I mean, you're kind of, you know, it's a lounge. You're sitting 2 feet away from the next person. I mean, you know, so it's all going to be really an experiment, I suppose, until something dials in, you know, which is insane. But speaking of Steinway, so here's the deal, getting back over to the Serbian for a minute with the Serbian Village.
Sure.
You've got a baby grand Steinway in the Serbian Village that you would never suspect.
Yeah, it's not exactly a baby. It's a mid-size. It's
okay.
6 foot. I think it's 6'2".
Oh, okay.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a great piano. Great piano. And that's because of Steve Thomas, the trumpet player.
Mm-hmm.
That was his father's piano, and they were trying to sell it. And then he decided that he didn't want it to go in a stranger's home, and that his father would want someone to play it. And, you know, thank God, it just all kind of came together. And we've had it there now several years. And I have Jim Hudson, who's really the piano tuner He's kind enough to try and keep it in shape, tune it here and there, tweak it. So, I'm really lucky. I mean, that's really a fantastic gig.
Well, yeah, and you're able to play. I mean, so the house band's Phil Gratteau, but also usually it's Kelly Sill, right, on bass.
That's right. Yeah, Kelly.
Yeah,
and
the
guy.
And Kelly. Actually, speaking of Richie Cole, right? I mean, Joel Spencer and Kelly, and Richie Cole and John Campbell. I think, yeah, John Campbell and Eddie Jefferson did that.
Right.
Had that famous group, and they have that recording they did at the old Jazz Showcase on.
Yeah, there's a video.
Yep.
You can actually buy it. I actually have it. But yeah, and they're cooking.
Man, yeah. I mean, and the story behind that's unbelievable. I was thinking I'm going to try to get Joel on at some point in the next couple of days to talk a little bit about Richie and all that, because they were touring. They were about to really break loose and do a lot of stuff with Eddie and Richie.
He was killed. I believe it was the following night.
Yeah, it was.
They finished their Sunday night at the showcase, and in Detroit on Monday night, that's when it happened.
Yeah, and so, Joel and Kelly and John didn't go to that gig because they already had another gig, and then they were going to go on a tour with them, and the whole thing ended that way, and it was a shame. But I know Joel used to play with Richie Cole a bunch back in the day. So
yeah. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I talked to John Campbell on the phone about Richie Cole yesterday. We were kind of reminiscing. John and I are in touch a lot. He's really one of my closest friends, and he's a great piano player. He's in Bloomington now, which is 100 miles away. But he comes up to Chicago and plays, and he's at the Green Mill with Jerry Bergonzi a couple of months ago, and that was really an incredible show to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, John's a wonderful guy, in addition to being a world-class piano player, such as yourself, Tom Muellner, a world-class piano player and a wonderful guy. So, so let's talk a little bit about the live streaming thing you're doing. So fill us in on that. Are you doing that regularly, or just popping on and playing some tunes? I thought it was a great idea, because everybody sees you perform live, but you actually have an opportunity now to play solo and actually think about what you're going to play, and then you're putting it out there. So is there a schedule to it, or just whenever you feel like it?
No, I just whenever, I don't know, inspiration strikes. And I have a snake thing and I have this big pole lamp, and the snake thing fits on it, and I'm able to clip the phone onto it and put it into video mode, and then you can kind of see the keyboard in my hands.
Mm-hmm.
And then I make sure you don't see me because my stomach's in the way. But yeah. So I don't know. I've maybe put 5 tunes out there so far,
and
I plan to do more. And I've been getting a lot of positive response. I don't do it any special time, or I just, I don't know. And people are requesting tunes, so now I'm trying to fulfill requests, and I don't have a tip jar or any of that crap. I mean, I'm not sophisticated enough to figure that out, but that's fine. It just, what else am I gonna do?
But if somebody wanted to mail you a check for $1,000, you would be happy to give them your address, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would do that. Even $100, but no, that's 50. No,
Well, now, the thing with you outside of the jam session is that you also, usually you're playing 7 nights a week. You're performing with some other group. A lot of the times you're playing with vocalists, and you also are somebody, and we should mention this now, in case somebody's listening and they might be interested in contacting you for this, but they should also be aware. I mean, you also put charts together. You put charts together for vocalists, and you customize charts, and you're really one of the top guys in the city that do that for vocalists.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's one of the things I've been doing during this downtime. I'm doing some charts for the singer Terry Sullivan, really nice singer, great person. And I'm doing charts for Steve Thomas, the trumpet player.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's, and I make a few bucks doing that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're also teaching too. Don't you do some lessons here and there, or is it just kind of like if somebody wants to come over for a consultation?
I did a FaceTime lesson with a saxophone player who he also plays piano, and he's pretty well advanced. So we did like a theory lesson
Mm-hmm.
that lasted about an hour and 15 minutes. But I also have do like I have vocalists. Well, not now, but vocalists would come over, and we rehearse and figure out that so someone might be learning a new tune, and I'll help them get through it, and or like, hey, that key you picked, let's try it here, and it's like, oh yeah, it's better there.
Yeah, yeah. You're giving them the adjustments, because a lot of times as a vocalist, especially a vocalist that's maybe, a couple years into her career and she's used to singing in a certain key and she's been doing that, but her voice changes and matures.
Yeah.
It needs to be readjusted a little bit. So a lot of times when they come and work with you, but I also think, when I was first taking lessons, when I came back from North Texas, I still studied for 4 years, but I would take a lesson once in a while. I was studying with Joel Spencer when I came back, but regularly.
Well, he's a master drummer.
Yeah, but when I would still take a lesson once in a while with a bass player or a piano player, a real, high-end person, just to figure out, because in that lesson, they would tell me, no, man, don't comp this way, or put the beat here, or groove this way or that way. So a lot of times,
absolutely.
you probably work with like a sax player, like what you said, but that helps because it's a completely different perspective. It's more of a real-life playing situation.
Yeah. And I've learned things from, I might do some gig, with some players who are definitely not up to the same level as some of the people I play with. But then I'll hear like the bass player play an interesting note on a certain change of a standard tune. I'll go like, I never thought of putting the bass note there, and I like it better than the way I've been doing it. So you can learn something. There's always something to be learned with anyone you play with, or people have a different perspective on things, and it's good to be open-minded about that.
Oh, completely. It's also it's good to talk to somebody like you, if it's like a player that's playing in the same circles, because you play in a lot of different circles, and you have for years, and you've accompanied people like Ira Sullivan, and I mean the list goes on as far as that stuff goes. So you have a different perspective. Because as a piano player, you need to adjust, if you're in the band, to what's happening, who the leader is. I mean, you can't just play the Tom Muellner way,
Absolutely. It's a team thing. And I think maybe that if I get a lot of work, that may be one of the reasons. I just go along with what's needed,
Mm-hmm.
And adjust according to the situation. I mean, I'm going to always be me, and I'm always a bit of a ham, but I could change the degree of hamminess.
Yeah.
But like when you're working with a singer, you want that singer to you want to make them sound great,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to get in his or her way,
Right.
So yeah, and it is a team thing, and I really believe that. And that's one of the things I like when I play with different people. I like playing with people who are team players. It just means that the music will be better. And Eric Snyder, he's a team player.
Oh yeah.
You never, in any situation, he's going to be there playing with somebody. It could be a traditional jazz thing, or with a singer or something, and he knows how to play behind a singer. Art Davis or any of these wonderful players I've worked with over the years. They know how to play behind a singer so that they play in between her notes, and just not get in the way, and it's really what it's about. It's knowing when it's your time to play and when not to play.
That's the key sometimes, is knowing when not to play.
Yeah, right.
I mean that's one of those things, and I mean, and that's why people love playing with you, and that's why you are constantly working when everybody's able to be working. So, hey, so where should we send people? What's your website? How should we send people over so they can connect with you? And then also obviously on Facebook. So I'll tag this out. So you'll be tagged on Facebook and they should check in. And if you're not following Tom on Facebook, follow him so you get the alert so you can go see when he drops another live video of him playing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what's your website?
And I have a my website is www.tommu, that's TOMMU, jazz, one word.
Mm-hmm.
TommuJazz.com.
TommuJazz.com. And then, of course, Tom Muellner on Facebook. And, well, I'll let you get back to your cooking, man, because, it's getting close to 5 o'clock. So you probably have to get the oven going over there.
Yeah. I think it's time to start cooking something here. But
it's too bad we're not cooking like on a bandstand, but that'll hopefully happen soon enough.
Right. Yeah. How about that bandstand that you used to go on that went up and down into the ground?
Okay.
But one last thing, though. I noticed I've been purging and trying to clean up CDs. I got CDs laying all over the place.
Yeah.
I found several that we did.
Oh, you did?
Where we interviewed Bill Clewitt.
Oh, from my old radio station.
Right, one live at Katarina's with Angel speech, and one with Bill Overton. Right. And so we've been doing this. I guess we've collaborated on a number of things over the years, and it's always a pleasure.
Well, now you made me think about this. I had you on my 9:50 a.m. radio show, This is Chicago Jazz. That was, 10 years ago. It was you and Roger DeVito and Bill Clewitt. And then
I remember that.
And then you guys came down to the studio downtown, and then I had you on the Catarinas with that. And then, of course, you've been on the Talkin' Jazz, and you were on the famous Johnny O's Talkin' Jazz. And if anybody hasn't seen that, I encourage you to go over to
video, hilarious.
Go over to check that out on our YouTube page and on ChicagoJazz.com, because Tom is cooking Polish sausages for Eric Schneider, marinated in Malort, in the Johnny O's kitchen. Right. And
right.
It was
and then the boss comes. Nick Snyder, the boss, comes in.
Yeah, the boss.
Says, hey. Yeah. All the profits are. What's happening to the profits here? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's too bad Johnny O's closed, because we had a perfect comedy routine opportunity over there. But you did that, and then you've done some other show shout outs and everything else. So we've been connected not only playing but also digitally and through content for many years. So I appreciate you jumping on today. And
glad to be here, and always good to play with you. And I hope we get to do that soon again.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Hope somebody gets to do something soon. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Man. All right, so we'll check everybody out. We'll check you out on Facebook and check out your live streams, and then we'll keep everybody up to date. TommuJazz.com. And all right, Tommy, thanks for being on, man. I appreciate you jumping on, and we will touch base probably sooner rather than later, so we can catch back up with Tom Muellner, hopefully when they announce that things are going to get cooking back up, and we can talk about when the Serbian Village Jam session is going to start again.
Yeah, damn right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, don't go shaving. You're beautiful.
Hello. All right. I'll talk to you later. Thanks, Tom.
Take care.
All right. Bye. Tom Muellner, ladies and gentlemen, he's great. He's one of those guys that, coming up in the jazz scene for me, and then I get some calls, and I was like, I don't know, 23, 24, and I'm like, well, I got to put a band together. So having him, having Nick Schneider, or even John Bainey, having Jennifer Zayas, as we discussed, but Pat Mallinger used to play some of those gigs, and Eric Schneider used to play some of those gigs. Those guys all steered me in the right direction. They would tell them, no, don't play that. Let's just keep playing this. Let's do this. Let's do that. They knew the ropes. So Tom was one of those guys that I played with since I got back in town. And we're still connected. We've played a lot of crazy corporate gigs in addition to a lot of great performance gigs. So I encourage everybody to go check that out. Tom Muellner on Facebook, and then TommuJazz.com. He's got a recording out too that you should check out. It's really dynamite. I think it's about 10 years ago that he did that now. But wonderful guy, and I'm glad he made it. And I'm glad Jeff Cebulski stopped by today, too, and talked about the new article on ChicagoJazzMagazine.com. Of course, thanks to the Epiphany Center for the Arts for the support and in presenting the show. And as I always say, if you have any information, any other people that we should connect with, hit us up, leave us a comment. Be sure to DM me, PM me. I've got a couple I've got to get back to, so I appreciate that. I actually got a couple phone calls I got to get back to, too. We're lining up shows the rest of this week, and next week we've got some good ones. John Primer is going to be on Friday, it looks like. The legend, the blues legend, he's going to be on Friday. And then on Thursday, it looks like I'm going to have Shonda Brooks on, and she is actually she runs a whole lot of different organizations. One of them, and she produces the Windy Fest, which is going to be coming up in the fall, fingers crossed, assuming all of this is over with. So that's going to be coming up at Epiphany, it looks like, at the Epiphany Center for the Arts. So we're going to talk to her about that. That's on Thursday. And then a whole lot more, so we'll be announcing that. Stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe so you get alerts when we go live. I encourage everyone, go over to Instagram, Chicago Jazz Magazine. Go over to YouTube. And, of course, all of the videos are archived on Chicago Music Revealed. It usually gets pushed back out in a couple of hours after the show, and it's up there so you can watch it. And if you're watching this on Chicago Music Revealed Facebook page, we're going to be coming over to you, and we're going to start broadcasting from the Chicago Music Revealed Facebook page rather than Chicago Jazz Magazine's Facebook page, starting most likely tomorrow, and I'll be cross-posting, so we'll be able to still be connected. But I want to go over to Chicago Music Revealed and like that page, subscribe, follow, so you get the alerts when we go live over there as well. So, that was a long-winded ending, but hey, I'm glad I made it. I appreciate everyone for watching, everyone for commenting, everyone. If you like this, please like it, please share it. As I always say, tell your neighbors, tell your neighbors, tell your family, call the grandkids. Chicago Music Revealed. Every day, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. this week especially. I think we might change it again, but we're going to see. But 4 p.m. this week, and if I don't see you somewhere soon in person, hopefully I will see you tomorrow right here, 4 p.m. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.